Welcome everybody back to Women Rising Wednesdays and to our second interview with the incredibly amazing, wonderful human being that is Carol Joy Williams. Thank you so much for watching last week and for all the people who reached out and said how much they enjoyed it, for all the people who reached out with messages of encouragement for Carol, and also the people who signed up to listen to her Navigating Life podcast. You guys rock. Come on, this is the way it's supposed to be. Women encouraging women. Let's do this thing. So if you didn't watch last week, please go and watch it. Please feel free to go back and watch it because I don't want to go through the whole intro thing again with Carol. We ran out of time last week. Half an hour isn't very long. So I really want to just leap straight in and just get going with the conversations that we are going to have today. Yeah. And so we're going to start where we left off. So for those of you who did watch last week, you will remember that Carol spoke about identity. She spoke a little bit about her history and how she landed up here in Cape Town and this incredible podcast that she has begun called Navigating Life. And then also she spoke about the fact that she's a co-founder and co-director of a brand new creative audio agency, the first of its kind in South Africa, called the Stellar Effect, which is very exciting and sounds very stellar. So welcome back, Carol. Thank you so much for being on this platform with me again. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I have coffee because caffeine is very needed today. So I'm going to have coffee while I listen to you talk.
That's awesome.
And okay.
Have my water.
We encourage all beverages, yeah.
I do also have a small sip of wine left from my glass from tonight.
Very good for the vocal cords, very good for the vocal cords.
No, very, very good. Absolutely. And we have more lights on my face tonight because I know last week's one was a little bit dark, so I'm hoping everyone can see me a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely see you better. And like I said to everybody last week, this is very new for me anyway. So technologically, we are making advances in getting this all set up correctly.
Indeed.
Okay, so Carol, let us leap straight in to chatting about the fact that you have pioneered this brand new agency, this brand new first of its kind agency within the South African career space. And you basically are a forerunner in terms of the agency, the Stellar Effect. And I think me, and I'm sure that the people who are watching, one of the things we really just want to hear is how you reached that point. And then also, what has your experience been like as a woman in the industry in South Africa and as a single woman, in terms of how you've been received and how, was it more difficult or less difficult or those sorts of things? So tell us your story.
Tell us the story. Okay. Well, I'll start with your first question. And I guess, I've had a very winding career journey. I think, choosing what again, like this is very privileged, right? To be able to choose what you want to study. And I realized that, but choosing that at an age where I really didn't know who I was still like, a lot of like my decisions were based off pleasing people, pleasing my parents, kind of just trying to, I guess, make everyone happy with me. And I guess living with quite a high degree of like responsibility for what I thought other people wanted me to do. And some of it was what they wanted me to do. It wasn't like I just thought that. And so I first studied to become a teacher, and I really didn't enjoy it. It was just not me. And then I ended up I did my master's in music therapy, which was amazing. That was kind of my first little like taste of what it felt like to do something that really made me come alive. And then, like I said in our first chat, like that kind of is what got me to Cape Town. And I worked here as a music therapist in an NGO for 3 years. And then I moved on to work in like entrepreneurial development for like another 2.5 years full time. And then that was kind of what was a pivoting point for me. Like I've always been an ideas person. I've always had lots of ideas, but I'd kind of never been like, no one in my family, like my whole family is teachers, like no one really had started a business. I wasn't surrounded by that sort of thinking. I wasn't surrounded by yeah, like by any of that kind of talk growing up, you know.
Mm,
And I'd kind of always had these ideas. I tried to like start a few side hustles on my own, but it like never got really far. Like I just didn't know how to do it. And then like, and this is what I always love about the Lord, like he always prepares you, and it's like, you know, these things which you think are going to be these massive barriers end up like, if you just follow his voice, he finds a way, you know. And
mm,
so I find myself working at this entrepreneurial development academy, and I'm surrounded by like young people who are just going for it, and they learning about business. And it was a short course. And we then like piloted a small business like program, incubator support program as well. And so I really like, I ended up learning about business as a result of working there. I was doing like the personal development and like the sort of like soft skills development on the program, but obviously being around like entrepreneurial stuff, you know. And so
mm,
I was
mm.
kind of really learning. And I'll never forget the one day, this one of the guys on the program, he said to me, he was like, so you like encourage us to go for our dreams and to take risk and everything. Like, why aren't you doing that? And yeah, I was like, oh my
Oh, that
God.
hurts. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, it was spicy. Hey, I was like, geez,
wow.
you excuse me, like, huh, you know, one of those things. But I mean, he was and like that was the thing. I was working with people that were around my age, you know, so I wasn't
Wow.
working with kids. It was kind of, these were grown-ups who also had a fair amount of perception.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's sort of like really yeah, that environment, it was just so encouraging. It's like one of the most incredible work environments I've ever worked in. I had the most phenomenal boss who like just encouraged me as a human being, and she just built me up.
Wow.
She was like such an incredible leader. And like, as I say, as a result, I ended up picking up all these skills that I needed. And in 2015, I was like, you know what, I know that there's more for me. I mean,
Mm,
I was like, I think I said it in the first episode as well. I was like, I knew what it felt like to wake up frustrated every day, like
mm,
to feel like
mm.
there was something, but it just like it wasn't clicking. And I think it was ultimately like God just was part of that. He would like allowed me to be frustrated, because
Yeah.
that ultimately kind of caused me to have a conversation with Ellie, my boss, who's a very dear friend now. And I just said to, you know, I know that I want to start my own thing. I don't know what that is. Like there's so many things I want to explore. And I like don't even know where to start. But all I know is I can't have a full-time job and like do this thing. And I
Yeah.
was basically like prepared to resign. And she said to me, she was like, okay, well, how about like you go part-time? Like, do you think you could do your job part-time? And like, and then let's make it work. And you can go off and explore these ideas.
Wow, that is
And
amazing.
right?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That is women encouraging women, hey?
Yeah.
Like one woman lifting another
Just
woman up and giving an opportunity.
giving me an opportunity to do that.
Mm,
Yeah. And that's what we did. So I
mm,
basically ended up being able to work part-time. And for the first 2 years, so from 2015 to 2017, I did so many different things. I was working there part-time. I was teaching cello part-time. I was doing a bit of private music therapy. I was, oh my gosh, I was working. That's when I started working at that coffee shop. I like was hustling, like just to make ends meet. And also just to explore like what I really wanted to do. I started writing music. I recorded my first album. Also, that was like just another miracle. Like God literally like just opened a door for me to record. and release my first album. I
Come
then got
on.
a phone call. Like, I mean, the stuff was so nuts. Like, I'd always wanted to do musical theater, and it was just one of those things that I hadn't really had the guts to go and study, and I think my family didn't really wanted me to study it, which I sort of understand, but it was just something that I'd always wanted to do. And literally out of the blue, I got this phone call like, we creating a new musical. Would you like to be the musical director? We got your number. I can't even remember how they got my number.
What?
And I was like, okay, yeah. And so I did. I was the musical director on a show for like 3 months, which cured me of wanting to do musical theater. It was quite wild. Like, yeah, it not
So it was
so
like, that is not my career path. Thank you very much for the experience. That's not what I want to do
yeah,
with my life.
totally. It was like I had this, obviously, like I tend to do this quite a lot. I romanticize things in my head and whatever. And it was very
I think
different.
we all do that. We all do
Yeah,
that.
it was
Yeah.
very, I mean, it was awesome. I'm so glad I did it. Like, it was so cool. But it was, yeah, it like I said, cured me from wanting to do that for the rest of my life. And yeah, and I worked at Polesmore Prison. I did like a music therapy program there. So I just did so many different things. And it was so cool. I was like the boss of my own time. I mean, I burnt myself out because I just was so busy and I had so many things going, and it was pretty hectic. But I think it was like this taste of freedom that I had been like looking for, and
Yes, yes.
really I felt like I was starting to like really get a grip of like what were the things that made me tick. And it was great. Like, and I was like, cool, I'm sorted. I'm done, like, or like this can be the next few years of my life. 2017 started and I was like, thanks, Lord. Like, let's just do copy paste from last year. And that is not what happened. Literally within 2 weeks of the year starting, I lost about half of my income. Like, projects that I'd been working on, which were supposed to continue, just didn't. And there was suddenly this vacuum, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Like, I was still working at the Entrepreneurial Development Academy, but like that was really not enough, like, to pay my bills even. And I was like, okay, what now? And I started applying for jobs, and like just nothing opened up. And I've had a lot of favor like in my job applications. Like, I've just always walked into jobs, and like it's a favor thing. Like, and obviously I was qualified for them. Well, some of them I wasn't. I was just like, just give it a bash, and then I would get the job and be like, okay. Anyway, but like, yeah, like I said, I'd had a lot of favor in that kind of thing, and like stuff just coming to me. It was awesome. And I sort of just thought that that's how faith worked, and it is in a way. But I then this thing happened. I lost like half my income, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I started applying for things, and it literally was like crickets. It wasn't even like, thank you so much for your, like, I heard nothing back.
Nothing.
There was nothing going on. And I was like super qualified for those things. It was like cool projects. And I was just like, now what? And I dealt with like, and I think I might have mentioned in our first story, like in our first session, like shame and dealing with shame has been a big part of my story. And I don't know if you know Brene Brown, but like she's one of my favorites. And
Love Brene Brown.
yeah.
Love Brene.
If you haven't read or watched anything about Brene Brown, do yourself a favor. She's a really smart lady, and she's researched like shame and all sorts of things. Anyway, and I love her definition. Like, she says, guilt is when you have done something wrong. Shame is the feeling that I am wrong. Like, there's something wrong, fundamentally wrong
Wow.
with me. Yeah.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I was hit with this massive wall of shame, like, which I'd been dealing with like my whole life. And it was this thing of like, well, what are you doing? And like, you just need to work harder and try harder. Like, this is irresponsible. What you're doing is just, like, are you sure you heard God?
Mm.
When everything was going well and like all my projects were kind of running and everything was great, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is super. I'm like, I definitely heard him. And then I hit this wall, and it was really tough, like really,
Wow.
really, really tough. And I had a whole lot of other stuff going on,
Yeah.
which I won't get into now. But like, yeah, life was just full on, and there were parts of it that were really complex. I was dealing with some fairly complex stuff in my
Yeah.
personal life, and I just was like, now what, anyway. And I'd been asked to, like, for this small project, to write the score, like the music for
Mm.
this film. And that was at the beginning of 2017, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this because I've got lots of time.
Yes.
And I was praying, and one day, and I just felt the Lord say, like, ask Jason, who was a friend of mine at the time, ask him to help you co-produce it, because he's a sound engineer and all of that stuff, and he obviously knows a lot more about recording than I do. So I felt that I needed to ask him to help me. So I contacted him. I was like, hey, would you be interested in like working on this small little project? I mean, it's not going to pay us a lot of money, but like, are you keen? And he was like, yeah, I'm keen. And that went really well. Like, we enjoyed working together. And he was also like, he was working a little bit, but like also didn't have anything full time going on. And I said to him, because I literally, like, I was like, there's nothing going on right now. I have this part-time job, but like nothing else. And like no other doors were opening, and it was pretty stressful.
Mm.
And yeah, like I say, just dealing with feeling like a massive loser. And like
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, I'm in my 30s, and like, what the heck am I doing?
Yes.
What on
Yes, because
earth?
we have these like milestones, hey, like in our minds, like by
Totally.
this age I should be here, by that age I should be there, like by this age I should, have a career, be able to support myself, then I should need to be married, then I need to have children. Like we have our whole lives mapped out, and these milestones that are really put on us by society pretty much, because
Mm.
it's just an expectation that that's what your life should look like. And then when we don't hit those, or where there's a bump in the road, because there's often a bump in the road, we just immediately look to ourselves and we're like, there must be something wrong with me. Everybody else has got the
Totally.
memo about what life is supposed to look like,
Yeah.
but I obviously missed that
But
session.
I miss that. And I think, another, like, definitely societal pressure, but like for me, it's been like navigating my own desires and dreams in those things as well, where it's like
Mm.
I haven't felt the societal pressure necessarily to be married, but it's been like a very deep, and it's like again another topic, but like
Mm.
I've had this very deep desire for it. So it not
Yes.
happening was like, it was sort of like, okay, and then like work was just not coming in.
Yes.
It was just really like this all around, like, what the heck am I doing with my life kind of moment, and um anyway. And yeah, and so Jason and I had done this project, and I said to him, I was like, well, would you be keen to maybe like start something?
Mm.
I'm like grasping at straws here because I don't really know, but maybe we could do like film production, music, film production, whatever. Anyway. And he was like, okay, cool. Let's try, and like, let's see where it goes. And we started bashing around in the dark a bit, like, the one day, and I mean, literally, like, we didn't know a lot. Um, and so we would just pray, like, we would sit and pray together, and then we would ask God to show us something. And then we'd like be like, okay, cool. I think this is what he's saying. So let's give that a bash. And even our name was like, we were like, okay, we want to have an like, what do we want to do? We want to have an impact, and we want to have a heavenly impact. So we were like, okay, stellar, and then we were looking for like impact words, and that's how we came up with our name, the Stellar Effect.
I
Anyway,
love that name. It's
it's cool.
amazing. I love the
Yeah,
stellar effects.
yeah. So yeah, and then like we just didn't really feel like we were getting a lot of traction. Again, like we got asked to like do this demo for a TV show for the music, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is it, like this is how we're going to make our break. And it just didn't happen. And for about 6 months we were like having meetings, we were putting like basic website together, we were like doing all of this stuff, and like it just was not going
Oh,
anywhere. But we were like, okay, like we're just going to keep going. Because again, like I
mm,
think because I'd been exposed to like entrepreneurial journeys through where I was working, I kind of
yes.
knew that it didn't just all happen at once.
Yes.
But yeah, so we carried on, carried on, carried on. And the one day, it was sort of around like probably around September of 2017. And we were just praying again. Like we prayed a lot back then, actually, because we were like, what are we doing? And yeah, and in praying the one day, I just felt the Lord say, like, you like go into podcasting. And I was like, I don't know, I didn't know what that was.
So you felt God say to you, go into podcasting. Like,
Yeah,
like it was literally like a revelation because you
yeah,
had known.
like a download. I didn't know.
Wow.
So I'd heard the term, but like I
Mm,
didn't know what it was.
mm,
Jason was like a bit more like, because podcasting, I mean, if it's still small now, back then it was like literally nothing going on in South Africa,
yeah.
but like very few. But Jason had sort of been an early adopter of podcasts. So he listened to podcasts at the time. I didn't, and I didn't even really know what they were. And I just said to him, I was like, I just feel like we need to go into podcasting. And he was like, cool, let's give it a bash. I'm like, okay, let's give it a bash. And literally the next week, we recorded our first podcast, which if you go back and listen to it now, it's pretty rubbish. But the point is, like, we were like, okay, the only way we're going to know what we're doing is to like start our own one. Let's
Yeah.
see. And we basically like roped in a whole lot of our friends who we knew who were like either creatives or who had their own businesses. And like we started interviewing about them about what they were doing. And we really started releasing them on like SoundCloud, and like just learning the ropes, like the very basic ropes of that. Yeah, and in 2018, I said to Jason, I was like, we need to get a coach, like we need to get a mentor, a business
Mm,
mentor, because like
mm,
we don't know what we don't know. And
mm.
like if we actually really want to go somewhere with this business, then we really need to like get some get some help. And we started working with the most incredible lady, Lee Griffin, who I just, she was just like a godsend for us. And we then started like properly doing business development, starting to work out like what our value add was, our business
Mm,
proposition, like our
mm.
products, like what we were going to do. We started researching. We literally almost took the whole of 2018 just to research, because like there was nothing going on in South Africa. And when I say like very little, Gareth Cliff had a podcast,
Mm.
there were one or two other
Yes.
people, but it was like really small. And it still kind of happens, but people were like recording radio shows and calling it a podcast, but like there wasn't really a lot of understanding on like the actual medium of podcasting and how to create
Yes.
for audio and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, so anyway, long story short, like 2018 was like just business development, and we worked so hard and like for no money, because we weren't, we didn't have like proper products yet. And
Wow.
then yeah, both of us were still working like other jobs to support ourselves and whatever. Um, and like I think that the really important thing to note here is, and this is like not to put anything on anyone, but we didn't really have a lot of support, because no one really knew what we were on about. Like, and so it was quite lonely. Like I
Mm,
remember that journey was quite lonely. Fortunately, like God has always given me one or two friends who are in the same boat as me, who also feel crazy, and they are
mm.
also like pioneering, and the ones in particular I'm thinking of are also women. So we kind of often have these chats, and so they were kind of there, and like up to a point, like friends and whatever were, and like I say, I mean, this is no jumping,
No,
not at all. It was just kind of
no,
what it
no.
felt like. It was quite lonely,
Yeah.
um and lots of second guessing, like lots of second guessing myself, like what the heck am I doing, like what is this, but just really kept on feeling like God was in it.
Yes.
And yeah, and so, and then end of 2018, beginning of 2019, we got our first project, and I'll never forget, because we charged like no money, because it was also someone we knew, and like she didn't but she was keen and was like, come, let's, like, because you guys actually need to have like some work to your name before you can start getting other clients.
Yes.
And so yeah, so we did that project. It was like the first money we ever earned. um yeah, like we have so many testimonies. I mean, we in that time, like, I got this. I was like, Jason, like I was moving out of my house, and that's where we'd been working from. We had a little studio in there. I was like, we need to find a studio space, and like I messaged someone I knew in Woodstock who had like a studio space, and I was like, hey, how much do you guys charge? I mean, we had no money, like no money. So I messaged her and I'm like, hey, we're looking for a space. She's like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, we've actually got a little room here that we're wanting to rent out. And like, also, we've just been given this, this opportunity to, we've been given some money, which we need to find some projects to give it to. Like, you guys should apply. And
What?
yeah, no, crazy. I mean, so crazy. And, so I was like, okay, cool. Like, please send me the application form. Didn't read that. I was like moving. I was in the middle of moving. So like things were just a total circus, boxes everywhere. And I didn't even read the form properly. I just like filled it in. And I then heard back from them a few weeks later. They were like, did you know this was actually for NGOs, like not for businesses?
Oh,
But the funder loves your proposal and wants to give you the money. And
come on.
yeah. And so we ended up, I think we got like 70,000 Rand, which I mean was just nuts for us. Like, we got 70,000 Rand that like covered our rent for basically like a year, which meant that we could move into the studio space. It
Oh,
meant that we could like buy
wow.
some equipment because we had nothing. We could buy some equipment. And we also then created a podcast series for them. That was like part of our arrangement with them, because we weren't an NGO. So it's more like, yeah, they kind of paid us, but like
Yes.
in chunks of money, like, which was very
Yes.
helpful. Yeah, and also like just learned so much on the job. We got moved into our first studio space, and yeah, and then like doors just started opening from there. And
Come
then
on.
2019, we like refined our ideas a little bit more. That's when we branded ourselves as a creative audio agency. Up to then, we like also had video and a whole lot of other things. And again, I just really felt like the Lord gave us the strategy to only do audio.
So
Again,
you kind of
remember,
you made yourself like a niche.
totally niche. And we were the
Yeah.
first people to do it. So there was
Okay.
nothing happening in that space. Again, podcasting only really took off, is still in the process of
Yes.
taking off last year and this year. So again, like
Yes.
still not much happening, but and our business coach was like, she doesn't think it's a good idea. And I was like, I just know that we need to like go into this niche. And I was reading some new stats today, and in the States, which like we quite far behind in terms of our trend, but like we will get there. Um,
Yes.
it's literally the fastest growing media form in the world. And like in
Wow.
the last 2 years, there's been like an exponential increase in the number of people engaging with podcasts in the States. It's like grown by, I think, like 7 million listeners a year. Yeah, and like I say, our stats are like comparatively like say America 2011. But the point is that I think our stats will probably do the same. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we decided we were going to just brand ourselves as a creative audio agency, and that's what we did. And then yeah, and then last year obviously lockdown happened, and we literally had to pivot, and we within 2 weeks we were operating fully online. So we like record and we produce and we do everything online. And what's amazing is like God had actually put it on our hearts, like probably about 6 months before lockdown happened, to start looking at how we could make ourselves a more remote service
Mm,
offering like
mm.
business. So we'd already had some of those conversations in like 2019. 2020 happens. Jason, my business partner, became a dad like in the first week of hard lockdown. I was like furiously searching online like online recording platforms. You can't use Zoom. It doesn't record good quality, good enough
Mm.
quality for podcasting.
For
Looking at
podcast, yeah.
all of that stuff, I mean, we were literally like, I mean, last year was freaking hectic. Like, but we started the year with like 2 clients, and we ended the year with 12. We
Wow, come
did
in lockdown. I
in
mean,
lockdown.
in like the worst possible sort of
Yeah,
economic climate
yeah.
for businesses, and you actually increased
We
your,
increased. We got our first
wow.
overseas clients. Yeah, we got 3. We ended up signing 3 overseas clients. We worked with like a big corporate in South Africa, one of the banks. We produced their podcast last year, which also like God had given me a word of knowledge of like what to pitch to
Yes,
clients.
yes, yes,
And
yes. Share that, yes,
yeah,
because
so
that's a testimony all on its own.
yeah, just like
Mm,
so crazy, just not really like, again, I mean, I didn't study anything in branding, marketing, audio branding. Like, I mean, that stuff, what I do now didn't exist when I studied. Like, it's a
mm.
brand new field, never mind, like, a brand new field for me.
Yes,
um,
yes.
yeah. And so just like really having to walk it out with the Lord. And like I say, Him giving us ideas for like pitches and things which, yeah, and just opening doors for us to big spaces where like we could, not get
Wow.
in on our own. um yeah, and like I say, like we're just increasing our client load. And in 2019 I was still working part-time at the Entrepreneurial Development Academy, and in the April I had a dream that my time there was coming to an end. And I was like, I didn't dream a lot, but man, I was freaking out. And I was like, God, this is still my income. Like, our business is not in a place that it can support me yet, support us yet. Like, this is so stressful. And true as Bob, the everything like started wrapping up there. And by sort of October, I knew that there was no ways that I was going to have work there the following year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like a really big leap of faith. And excuse me, I said to Jason, like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be working full time in the business next year. We both need to work full
Yeah.
time in the business. Yeah. And the year started, we'd had like one big project at the end of 2019, which like gave us a bit of a runway, like financially. And we paid ourselves. We started paying ourselves, I think, at the end of 2019. And that was also just a real faith journey. Like,
Mm.
we were not sure if we were going to get more projects the following year. I literally had no more work lined up. Other work that I'd been doing, like I was doing lots of gigs and that kind of stuff. All of that stuff started drying up. And like God had also like told me that that was going to happen. And then it started happening.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, and like as I said, it was super stressful, but also like I had a lot of peace about being
Mm.
in that position. Yeah, and then like I say, lockdown happened, and we signed our first retainer clients, I think in May last year. And now have about 3 or 4 retainer clients and like quite a lot of different projects that we've worked on. And yeah, and it's it the faith journey doesn't stop. It's
Mm.
like it's
Mm.
easy to think, okay, well, now we have money in the bank and all of this
Mm.
stuff, but it's still a journey. And we still are so like, we are so aware of the fact that yeah, that this is like, it's right at the beginning, like when we had no money, like the business didn't have money, and like us personally, we didn't have money either. We were like, okay, you know what, Lord, we're gonna do a golden handshake with you, and like you are the CEO of our business, and we're gonna trust you to provide, and we're gonna trust, in all of this. And yeah, and I mean, we've got lots of ideas for expansion and like a whole lot of things. We also like, sorry, I know that I'm going on here, but like a lot of our sort of real heart behind the business, besides like pioneering in an industry and all of that, is also to really like shift the mentality of creatives in South Africa.
Mm.
Because we have a very, very terrible work sort of, not work ethic. Creatives work really hard, but they don't get paid properly, and people don't value that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so like, yeah, we've got this sort of Oh, the other thing which God gave me when in 2017, when he was like going to podcasting, was he kept on giving me the phrase economies of collaboration. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Economies of collaboration. And it was like, and I wrote it down and I was like, I don't actually know what this is. But basically our business model now is a collaborative business model where we work with other small businesses who have
Oh,
like supportive services for what we do, that so like
yeah.
script writing, for example, is one of the things that we do for the podcast, but I'm not like a copywriter, so we work with someone who has her own small agency doing copywriting and that kind of thing.
Oh, fantastic.
And so we call it the Stella umbrella. And so we also like have a very different mentality where we're trying, instead of and this has been hard because again, like the sort of general mentality in the creative industry isn't great. But so we're trying to like cultivate a mentality of generosity and like there's enough work for all of us.
Yes.
And so we actually promote other people like on our website, not people that do the same as us. Obviously, that would be silly, but
Yeah.
like yeah, like other small businesses who have
Yeah.
like other sort of things that, and they like say maybe do graphic design for us or
Mm.
whatever. We actually we put them on our website, we speak about them like on our social media and our marketing, and it's been so cool because we found a lot of like-minded agencies and businesses that work on the same principle, and like we refer work to each other. And yeah, I haven't seen like the economic impact of the collaborative thing just yet, like in
Yes.
the fullness of like what I think it can
Yes.
be.
Yes.
But I definitely believe that it's part of God's heart for us, and part of what we're also building in what we do is to create like these collaborative spaces where everybody wins, where everyone has enough, where like creative people and talent is paid what it's worth,
Yes.
and where we actually like build kind of a creative economy that is sustainable, because up to now many people have had these incredible talents, but they just can't make a living, so they go and do other things.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
it's quite a complex thing, but I really believe like God is really bringing creatives to the fore, and I think it's the way of thinking that actually the world needs now. um
Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
so I feel like we've also been kind of called to pioneer in that space as well, and obviously pioneering in an industry. Um, yeah, so that's like a
Yeah.
bit of the story. um,
Okay, we have now run out of time.
ran out of time. Oh my gosh, I'm so
but
sorry. No,
you
go
know
through.
what? But I just wanted to say, I just wanted to summarize just for the people who've been listening, because it's such an incredible story of yours. So basically, God gave you a revelation, but you worked flipping hard to make that revelation a reality. You
Mm.
paid, I presume you paid a business mentor to mentor you with your brand new
Out of
business
our own pockets, like
out
we
of
were
your
not
own pockets.
making
Yeah.
any money. So it was like, all your friends are going away for weekends and like going out for dinner, and you like have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be at home because I can't
Yes.
afford to do that because I'm paying a business mentor to teach me about a business that I don't even know if it's gonna work. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
But so what I'm saying is, I think sometimes we think God gives us revelation and then he just makes it all happen like a little
Mm.
puzzle that he just quickly puts together for
Yeah,
us. And we
in
just
like
like,
five
oh, here we
minutes.
go, like 6 months later, you know. And it's not like that at all. He gives us the revelation. That's the first step. Then you go on a journey with him, stepping out in huge faith, trusting that he's going to come through, not seeing him come through. I mean, he came through in that you never went without and all of that, like you've said, but you didn't see the fruit of him coming through completely for a couple of years.
Yeah, I
And
still
then, and
have.
even
I
now,
hope it's
exactly, even
coming.
now, like you're saying, yeah, you're still trusting, you're still having faith.
Yeah.
But, and then apart from that, he's given you now a bigger picture. Actually, if you're talking about the collaboration in the creative space, it's like a kingdom picture. It's kingdom business, bringing heaven to earth in terms of the creative space and wanting to value what people carry and what they do and their talent, and trying to shift a culture which, as we've spoken about this before, is very much lacking in South Africa, trying to shift a culture from a space, from a place. So because I was talking to somebody else about this today, God is always looking at a bigger picture. You know, we only see the little bit that we're in, and we're like, oh, what about me? What about me? And God's like, no, hang on. Like, but there's this big picture I'm working on, you know, all the people who are going to be impacted by you stepping out in your space, you know. So I just think that story and those testimonies are just amazing. And, you know, just again, just a reminder for everybody watching that we're going to do, in the last Wednesday in April, we're going to do a live Q&A with Carol. FB Live, I think we agreed we would do a Facebook Live, I can't remember now, but yeah, Q&A with Carol, and I think we'll do it in the evening, so if you work, you can come on, but like, save up your questions, because this is a road that Carol has walked, she's pioneered, she's been a forerunner in these areas, and that is so that others can follow behind. You know, we pioneer these things to make it easier for other people. Absolutely. And we go through these things so that other people don't have to learn the hard way, they can actually learn from what we've gone through. So you know, save your questions up and make sure that you're there when we do the Facebook Live, so you can ask Carol your questions about these things, because we want to encourage you all to step out. You know, if God has called you and God has given you something, to step out into that, knowing that it doesn't guarantee you an easy road. You know, it's still hard, you still work hard, it's still, you know, but God is with you right through. So we are way over time now, but my friend, before we go, would you just, like, I don't know, do like a quick prayer or a quick declaration, or just something over the people watching, to just, like, I don't know, just a faith thing or some, whatever Holy Spirit tells you.
Okay, cool. So God, I just thank you for every single person who's hearing my voice right now, every single person who's watching this. And I just thank you that you have a plan and a purpose for everybody. And the plans and purposes that you have are, like, so varied and so exciting and so wonderful. And they reach into every aspect of society, and they reach into every area. And Jesus, I just pray that you would expand our minds to understand that, to really see that and what it looks like. And for people who have felt like they don't really fit in a mold, God, that you would just show them that that's how you've created them and they don't need to fit into a mold. I pray that you would shatter that, Jesus. I pray you would give us an upgrade in our thinking, Holy Spirit. And I pray just for boldness and a courage to come on every single person who has a dream, or you've been speaking to about doing something, God. And I thank you that you plant people in businesses as well. You plant people in spaces in society, that not everyone has to start their own thing, God. I just pray that anyone who's feeling insecure about that would just have a renewed sense of security in their calling, if they're called into places that already exist, Jesus. And for those who are going on this path of trying something on their own, or starting their own business or their own project, or whatever it is, Jesus, I just pray for your blessing. I pray for your provision of every single thing that they need, for the right connections, the people connections, the finances, the ideas, the strategy, just every single thing that goes into making something like this happen, God. And I pray that you would breathe life onto dreams, onto things that have felt hard and closed up. And I just pray, God, that every single person who really takes hold of this message would really would have a confirmation from you, Father. Something small, something that only maybe they will know. And I just thank you for those confirmations that they are on the right path. And I thank you that you're so kind. You're a good Father, and you love us, and you also love the world, and you want to create beautiful heavenly places on earth. And God, we just put our hands up for that, no matter the journey, no matter the cost. We want to say yes, we want to be obedient, and I pray that in our obedience that we would just see the fullness of what you paid for, Jesus. And we thank you for the deep joy in living in freedom with you, God. Amen.
Amen. Amen, my friend. Thank you so much for that. To everybody who's joined us, everybody who's watched, thank you so much for watching. And we will see you again next week, Wednesday, when Carol, we will do our third interview with Carol. And then the following Wednesday after that will be our Facebook Live. So get excited. And I can't wait to hear all the testimonies flood in of what God has done. Thank you, my friend.
Right.
You're amazing. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
Stephanie. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. See you next week.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye.